Good evening YouTube, what's cracking off? Asmid here, and today we're going to be talking about the Skaven as part of my race guide for Total War Warhammer 2. Now this high level analysis applies to all difficulty levels, so whether you're a new player and you just want some instructional tips, or whether you're a veteran player looking just to unlock looking to unlock the full potential of the Skaven, hopefully this video will help you do that. Now this video is based on campaign only. So if you're playing on Mortal Empires or either Vortex, this guide does not necessarily apply to multiplayer. Now, with that out of the way, in this video we're going to be talking about four main things. We're going to talk about the pros and cons of the Skaven race. We're going to be talking about the key race mechanics. We're going to be talking about the campaign strategies and tips, the battle strategies and tips, and then we'll just be summarising all of that. In terms of pros and cons then, so the Skaven have got a really powerful campaign stance. Now, they're not unique to the Skaven, but they are really powerful. They've got the Stalk stance and the Use Underway stance. Now, we'll go into a little bit more detail about them later, but they are really powerful stances that the Skaven do have access to across the board. Now, they also have a fantastic economy, which really starts kicking in the mid to late game. Every building in the Skaven building tree, it generates income. So as you can see here, walls generate income, growth building generates income. This already generates income anyway, but basically every single building does this. So there isn't any reason why you should leave empty building slots in your settlements, because you might as well slap a building in, preferably a wall if you haven't got one already, and just see your income climb up. However, they do have a bit of a lopsided roster. Now, they have fantastic missiles in terms of their units, in terms of their Skaven weapons team and their artillery units, but what they're really let down by is their melee contingent. Now, especially their melee infantry contingent is really subpar. The Storm Vermin, regardless whether it's sword and shield or halberds, they're just below average. They're decent, but for tier 3 elite infantry, they're not that good. So that is an aspect where the Skaven really do fall down. However, I do also want to point out this is more of a neutral aspect rather than an advantage or a disadvantage, but they do have the food mechanic. Now the food mechanic is actually, in my opinion, it's a really powerful advantage because it's really great in the mid to late game and you're just steamrolling through factions. However, some people can find it as a bit of a nuisance, so that's why I've just left it as a neutral rather than an advantage or disadvantage. So the Skaven food mechanic is again something that's unique just to the Skaven, and it works by, well, it's kind of this bar here. So you generate food from fighting as a Skaven. You can generate some food from mission completions or undercities, but you're not going to get that to start off with. You generate food straight off the bat by fighting. So that's sacking, that's raiding, raising. So it's good because if you go to the top end of the bar, you will get some faction wide buffs. But if you have little food, you're not balancing out very well, then you do get some penalties. So with food, balance is really the key. Undercities are another unique mechanic that are available to the Skaven, in the fact that every time a Skaven sacks a settlement or wins a battle in the settlement, then they can have the option to turn it into or establish an undercity there. And you can also establish undercities by using Warlock Engineers, but there is I think there's a 10 turn cooldown time. But overall, I think that the most efficient way of establishing undercities is by just taking your army around settlement by settlement and just establishing them. Now they can be very useful in a variety of ways, and we'll get into that later, but personally I find the accumulation of food the best aspect for them to work on. But again, we'll move on to that later. There's also Skaven corruption. So this is a very negligible thing, to be honest. I won't get too hung up about it, but every time you conquer a new province, your Skaven corruption increases slightly. I think there is a cap. Usually it doesn't get past, let's check this one. Yeah, so usually it does stop before you get to 70%, unless you're invoking a lot of Skaven corruption through your buildings. I wouldn't get too hung up about it though. It doesn't make much difference whatsoever, but it's just for your awareness, just know that it is there. As I said, they've got really powerful stances. Now let's just quickly go into what they look like. So they have the they have the stalk stance here, and they have the underway stance. Stalk stance is a very powerful mechanic that allows them to pretty much ambush anyone on the attack. With their skill tree, with Ancient Cunning, they can boost up the probability of ambushing on stalk as well, so it is a very powerful stance. You've also got the use underway stance, which is really useful if you ever find yourself in a mountainous terrain and you just want to traverse land really quickly. Like for example, if I just wanted to, I can't hear, but if I take you to Arat here, if I just wanted to get from this side of the mountain to the other side, usually I'd have to go all the way around this mountainside here, but with the underway stance you can just pretty much teleport from one side to the other, so it is pretty useful. Moving on to the campaign strategies then for the Skaven. Now they have a relatively weak beginning, but they have an exponential rise in power. The reason why they have a bit of a weak beginning is because the units they start off with aren't the most powerful. Usually they're Skaven slaves, like these ones here, Skaven slave spears, Skaven slaves, and Skaven slave slingers. So go on, it is a bit weak, but it's not too long before they can start accessing the weapons team, especially the rattling guns, a very powerful unit for tier 3. So I'd say the early game they are a bit weak, but they have an exponential rise in power. Yeah, so what you really want to do is just turtle up for the first 20 turns, level up your lord so you can ambush well, get your settlements your capital settlement to tier 4 by gathering enough food, abandoning the settlement, and then capturing it again and occupying it at tier 4. And then you'd be able to afford the good units, and that's the way I think you should go as a Skaven. However, that is just my opinion. There might be other ways that you guys might say are better. If you do feel so, please feel free to mention them in the comments. Now, one thing that is key with Skaven, regardless of whether you don't like to turtle up or not, is you got to make sure you keep on fighting and sacking and raiding for food. Food is really powerful. So what I personally like to do is turn every single undercity into a bit of a farm foods. That's a nice little farm food British joke for you there. Now, there are a lot of other buildings you can build in the undercity to generate income and all that, but I find them a bit useless, to be honest. I don't want to lose food. Food is the key resource I have that I can only gain by fighting, which can get a bit awkward sometimes because you're not always going to have enemies around you to fight or undercities. So I've dedicated about 10-15 settlements around here on the southern part of the empire just so I can generate food. As you can see here, each settlement is generating 3 food per turn, which means I can just keep steamrolling factions across the map. So, for example, I'm now going to go at war with Tic-Tac-Toe. So, if I want to capture the Springs of Eternal Life, I can easily just beat his army and then take that settlement straight to tier 3 by just expending food, 60 food to take it from tier 1 to tier 3. So the way the food mechanic works, just for your information, is for every level you want to increase your settlement by, it's 30 food. So again, if it's from 1 to 3, then it's 60 food. If it's from 1 to 5, then it's 120 food. So that's why I think food is such a really powerful mechanic for the Skaven. Now, in terms of the commandments available to the Skaven, again, this is something that's completely up to you. Personally, I like to use expansionist planning if they're not max level already. If they are max level, I like to go exploitative planning for that extra food. But it is really up to you. One thing I would highly recommend though is building walls in every settlement. There's no real reason why you shouldn't be building these bad boys. They defend your settlement, they give good abilities in the form of warp bombs, they've got very good strong garrisons, and they generate income. So there isn't any reason why I shouldn't be building walls in every settlement. So in terms of traits for lords and heroes for the Skaven, they do have access to some really powerful traits. So one of them, let's start with lord traits first. So they have knowledgeable, which is really powerful. I always like to recruit a knowledgeable lord and just save him in my faction, just because his trait applies faction wide. So all armies faction wide +5 wins a magic reserve. It's really great. You also get the sneaky trait, which is good because it's ambush success chance of 25%. I think those are the key ones. In terms of hero traits, you also get well, aggressive isn't that good, but you get knowledgeable heroes and you get cunning heroes as well that increase the ambush success chance of the army. And seeing as the Skaven are primarily focused on ambushing, I think it works together very well. So if I were to farm traits for the Skaven, it'd be cunning and knowledgeable heroes, and knowledgeable and sneaky lords. Sneaky lords for the actual combat, and knowledgeable lords, you can just use it just as a faction buff, and just to spam them really, and never recruit them again. It can be very useful. I'd also highly recommend building the warp turbine plant engineering building, just because as we'll discuss later, there are two main unique heroes that are, in my opinion, essential to the Skaven army, and the engineering building tier 5 allows you to increase the capacity for one of them, the Warlock Engineer, by 1, and that is pretty much the only way you can increase the capacity for it. So you want to be building these warp turbine plants in every tier 5 settlement you can do. They are a bit expensive, but as the game gets on, you shouldn't have too much trouble, because your income does skyrocket up towards the mid to late game. In terms of siege battles, you got to capitalise on the Skaven strength. So melee is poor, magic, missiles and monsters is strong. So what you want to be doing is, for your siege battles, your land battles, you want to be capitalising on what your strengths are, which is, in this case, missiles. You can bring a monster, some sort of stack, but they are a bit more expensive, and they're very unique with Throt. If you're not playing Throt, then you're not very likely to get the best monster doom stack. Oh, some of my men actually died here, I didn't even realise that. But yeah, anyway, so what I like to do as part of my Skaven army is go 2 plague core catapults, 4 poison wind mortars, which are here. Then I like to go 6 rattling guns, which are here, and 4 Jezzails, which are here. Now, the numbering of this, you can really change this to however way you want. You don't necessarily need 4 poison wind mortars. You can potentially get more rattling guns if you so wish. But personally, I find that I play a lot of siege battles, and I find poison wind mortars excellent against sieges. In terms of units as well, I like to bring obviously a Lord. Personally, this is Skrulk here on the right, but personally I like to bring a Grey Seer of the Plague, because I think the Plague Law of Magic is really powerful. And then the Warlock Engineer as well as a hero on the army. Now this is a good hero because it boosts the speed of the army, boosts the range, boosts the mobility, the missile strength, the ammunition. It's just a very powerful army buffing unit overall. And then I like to bring 2 Plague Priests as well. These guys are the bad boys who just deal a lot of damage. They create a lot of clan rats, they summon a lot of clan rats. Now, what I like to do with my Skaven army is usually just use these catapults to destroy the towers initially, and then create breaches in the wall. And those breaches are where my rattling guns and my Jezzails will capitalise on. But before I even bring any of those rattling guns close by, I'm going to use my poison wind mortars to absolutely devastate the enemy. These are the poison wind mortars, and these guys are fantastic for just tearing apart the enemy, as you'll see whenever I start firing. There you go. The damage these guys do is absolutely ridiculous. They'll just tear through this whole line of these crossbowmen on each side. And the thing with poison wind mortars is their damage. It's poison globe damage. So basically, the damage occurs over a period of time. So even after the shot has hit, the unit will still be losing troops because of the poison damage. Now, in terms of doom stacks, then I do think that the Skaven weapon team, which is what I've got here, or a version of which I've got here, are very powerful. However, you can go the monster doom stack as well. Like I said, monsters are powerful as Skaven. You might want to get a few brood horrors, but you do have to be careful with them because they can be large targets, so they are susceptible to missiles. However, in land battles, I just think that rattling guns here, they're just really, really powerful. In siege battles, I think poison mortars, these guys will rack up. I mean, I racked up 800 kills on 3 of them. I think this one got like 500. So they are very, very powerful units. As you can see, they're just constantly decimating the enemy crossbowmen up here. They can't reach them. I just think it's a very powerful unit. They have access to some very strong spells. So like I mentioned earlier, there's Skrulk. He's got access to, apart from his Liber Bubonicus spell, which is a direct damage spell, which is okay. He's also got access to Plague, which is a very powerful vortex spell. He's got access to Vermintide as well, which is a very powerful summoning spell. It's not that powerful in terms of the unit it summons, but it's just powerful in the fact that it buys you space, it buys you time. You throw these clan rats in, you get the rest of your troops into a good position, and then you'll be able to absolutely crush the enemy. And as you can see here, I'm not going to watch the whole battle here, but as you can see, the Poison Wind Mortars are just absolutely destroying whatever they hit, whether it's Empire Knights, Swordsmen, Crossbowmen, etc. So in terms of battle strategies, I do definitely think that the Skaven weapon team, especially the Poison Wind Mortars, are fantastic at sieges. Overall, I say that the Skaven are, in my opinion, the strongest race in Warhammer 2. Their abundance of unit mechanics make them so powerful in a large variety of ways that I just think they are number one. However, they do require a very aggressive playstyle, especially to keep on top of that food. Their early mid-game mechanic really starts kicking in, again like I said, in the early mid-game, so don't expect them to be really powerful straight off the bat. They do have to put some work in before they reach that level. They can be very cheesy or exploitative, so that can be a pro or a con depending on whether you like that sort of stuff, but the end of the matter is this: that the Skaven race are a very deadly race. Now, I appreciate everyone watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a comment or subscribe. If you didn't like it, again, please leave me a comment explaining why, and I'll try and get back to you. Appreciate you guys watching. Peace out.